Humanity was moving along like usual, routine lives, familiar chaos. At the White House, big political decisions were being made, while out on the streets, regular people planned their tomorrow, completely clueless about the storm creeping their way. Then, just one morning flipped the entire world upside down. Out of nowhere, every living creature with a Y-chromosome dropped: dead men, male animals, birds, all gone in an instant. Even the president wasn't spared. The only ones left, a washed-up, barely known magician named Yorick, and his only companion, a capuchin monkey named Erson. Chaos hit fast. Regina Oliver was next in line to become president during emergencies, but the moment disaster struck, she was overseas and just vanished. No contact, no clue, no command, and without anyone steering the ship, everything started falling apart. The city descended into madness. Fear-stricken women, overwhelmed and heartbroken, flooded the streets in violent riots, destroying whatever stood in their way. Nobody knew what to do or how to survive. Inside the White House, panic bubbled behind locked doors. The countdown had begun. In 2 weeks, coal and clean water would run out completely. Food supplies? Already dwindling fast. No males left meant animals couldn't reproduce, and rebuilding food resources? Impossible in time. And the worst part, it wasn't just one city facing collapse. The entire world was on the brink. Senator Jennifer Brown steps up and takes control during the crisis. Not long after, she's approached by Agent Sarah Bergen, a mysterious operative from the president's ultra-secret task force, known only as Designated 355. Sarah explains that she was dispatched because of a serious threat, but everything happened so fast she never even got full intel on what exactly she was walking into. Meanwhile, Yorick is doing everything he can to stay off the radar. Holed up in his apartment, he's terrified of becoming a target for the growing number of panicked, desperate women. But as his food and water run dangerously low, he finally makes a choice. He leaves a note for his girlfriend and ventures outside to see what's left of the world. Back at the White House, Senator Brown gives Sarah her first critical mission: find her missing daughter, Hero. Since the disaster hit, Hero's gone completely silent. But instead of running for cover, Hero has her own agenda. She heads straight for a refugee center, where she offers comfort and help to survivors, including the grieving wife of her late lover. Afterward, she returns to a hidden shelter where her close friends are gathered. At first, the sight of a few surviving men causes shock, but it doesn't take long to uncover the truth. These individuals were born female and transitioned using hormone therapy, which spared them from the deadly fate triggered by the mysterious plague. In New York City, the chaos deepens as evacuation efforts kick into full gear. The streets are flooded with military vehicles, heavily patrolling in search of any threat. Yorick, doing everything he can to stay out of sight, finds himself in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. He knows the military is on the lookout for anyone trying to sneak around, but that doesn't stop him. He manages to slip into a local bar, where he leaves a new message for his girlfriend. His heart aches, desperately hoping she's still alive, and that seeing his autograph might bring her back home. Usually, Yorick's quick reflexes keep him under the radar, but today things take a turn for the worse. His mischievous capuchin, Erson, slips out of his grasp and runs off. Without thinking, Yorick chases after him, but the chase leads him straight into the flooded subway, where Erson disappears into the filthy, corpse-laden waters below. Racked with disgust but driven by loyalty, Yorick knows he can't let his only friend vanish. He plunges in after him. As Yorick struggles through the murky water, he swears he spots another living man. Could it be a mirage? Shining his flashlight around, he's left with nothing but the grim reality of debris and rotting corpses. Determined, he climbs back up to the surface and finds refuge in a clothing store, hoping to change without being seen. But luck isn't on his side. The shopkeepers freeze, staring in shock at the naked stranger in their midst. One woman proposes handing him over to the authorities for a reward, but in the end, they take pity on him. With a mixture of sympathy and fear, they offer him clean clothes and let him slip away. The pressure Yorick's been under is pushing him to the edge of madness. Desperate for some comfort, he scrolls through the videos on his phone, reliving the moment when Erson, his loyal capuchin, came into his life. The sound of his friend's voice is enough to pull the little monkey out of hiding. The pair, finding solace in each other, return to the apartment, thinking they're safe at last. But the moment Yoro hears the door creak open, panic sets in. Someone's broken in. With no time to think, he grabs the nearest weapon, a guitar, and hides, waiting for the intruder. But before he can make a move, it's too late. Sarah is faster, stronger, and quicker to act. In a flash, she disarms him and, after a few tense hours, delivers him right to his mother, Senator Brown. Meanwhile, the pilots who flew Yoro into the White House are locked away out of sight. Sarah spins a story about them needing rest after the long flight, but the truth is far darker. They can't risk anyone knowing that the new president's son is alive. The mere hint of a conspiracy could spark even more chaos. Yoro's not exactly thrilled about being locked away either. After a much-needed rest, he's itching to explore. Curiosity gets the best of him, but it nearly costs him everything. While snooping around an abandoned office, Yoro's discovered by Mara, the widow of the deceased president. Just in time, Jennifer and Sarah arrive on the scene, quickly convincing everyone that Mara's suffering from a severe mental breakdown. While Mara's fate is momentarily sealed, Yoro manages to slip into hiding, but the tension among the conspirators is only growing stronger. Sarah insists that Yoro must be removed from the White House, or the whole situation could spiral out of control. The late president's daughter is desperate to uncover what her mother saw that night. Jennifer tries to reassure Kimberly, telling her it was just a hallucination, but Kimberly isn't convinced. Something's not adding up. Deep down, she suspects that President Brown is hiding the truth. Meanwhile, Jennifer Brown gives the order to track down a geneticist, someone who can examine Yoro and uncover the secrets behind his survival, and that of Erson. Jennifer plans to bring in specialists to the White House, but Sarah stands firm. It's too dangerous. They need to get Yoro out of the city as quickly as possible. Sarah is ready for the risky mission, but time is running out. Elsewhere, in Israel, a woman awakens, bruised and bloodied. The world-shattering news reaches her. All the men on Earth are gone. But instead of despair, she makes a bold declaration. She's now going to claim the presidency of the United States. Nora Brady, once a top presidential advisor, is left wandering the ruins with her young daughter, Mackenzie. Having lost her husband and sons, with no resources left, she's on the brink of collapse. But through sheer willpower, Nora pulls herself together, determined to fight for her survival and her daughters. Back in the White House, a bombshell reaches Jennifer. Regina Oliver, the leading presidential candidate, is alive. This causes a deep divide among the staff. Some remain fiercely loyal to Jennifer Brown, while others rally around Regina Oliver and Kimberly. With the stakes higher than ever, Jennifer has no choice but to agree with Sarah's plan. Yoro needs to be moved to safety. Sarah gathers the pilots who previously flew Yoro into the White House, promising them glory if they succeed. The plan? Smuggle Yoro out in a cart full of dead bodies. The boy protests, trying to come up with another way, but Sarah stands her ground. There's no time for other options. The plan is set. With military precision, Sarah gets Yoro into a helicopter, and she plans to fly it herself. A second helicopter, piloted entirely by women, will act as a diversion. But just as they reach cruising altitude and disappear from sight, disaster strikes. The escort helicopter loses control and explodes into a fiery ball of debris. The explosion sends shockwaves through Yoro's body, but Sarah remains unshaken. This was the price for keeping the pilots quiet. After hours of tense flight, Sarah and Yoro finally land in a secluded forest to rest. The stench from the cart, still clinging to Yoro, is unbearable. Sarah, struggling to endure the smell, asks Yoro to undress. She tells him it's time to wash his clothes before they continue on their journey. After all, they can't risk drawing attention with that kind of odor. Meanwhile, Yoro's sister, Hiro, sets off on her own journey, accompanied by her friend, a trans man. As they make their way to find a safer location, they stop at a looted store, hoping to scavenge some food. Instead, they come across a frightened Nora and her daughter, Mackenzie, tending to the girl's leg. Hiro quickly spots a serious, infected wound and insists on offering first aid to ensure they can keep moving forward. Back in the forest, Sarah and Yoro's brief respite turns into a nightmare when their camp is attacked by a group of wild looters. Sarah tries to talk them down, but the situation grows tense. Fearing for their safety, Yoro grabs a mask and waves a stick to scare off the women. The looters hesitate, and the threat finally subsides. But Sarah and Yoro both know they can't afford to stay in one place for too long. They head toward the nearest town where they make a trade, a helicopter generator and a couple of grenades for a motorcycle. As Sarah inspects the bike, Yoro, forgetting every bit of caution, runs off, thinking he's spotted his girlfriend, Beth, in the crowd. His reckless move lands him in a trap. He's surrounded by female police officers who rip off his mask and expose his secret. Sarah quickly jumps into action, fighting off the officers and dragging Yoro away. Once they're out of danger, she stops the bike, furious. She forces Yoro to face the reality of their mission and reminds him how close he came to ruining everything. Meanwhile, Hiro, her friend, and their new companions find shelter for the night in an abandoned women's refuge. Hiro, exhausted, confides in Nora about Mackenzie's worsening condition. She needs antibiotics, but every pharmacy has been looted, leaving only fear and despair in its wake. Nora steps outside to hide her tears from her daughter. But outside, she faces a new terror. A group of women, led by Roxanne, claim ownership of the shelter and seem far from welcoming to the uninvited guests. The group is quickly rounded up by the Amazons, as Roxanne's followers call themselves, and forced into the stables like cattle awaiting slaughter. But Nora's quick eyes notice a glimmer of hope. One of the Amazons is badly wounded. She asks Hiro to examine the girl and provide whatever help she can. Hiro does her best, but the gunshot wound is too severe, and with nothing but duct tape and rubber gloves, it's clear that time is running out. After hours of makeshift surgery, the girl's condition only worsens, and Roxanne, with a cold look in her eyes, decides to end her suffering once and for all. To Nora's surprise, Roxanne shows a surprising kindness, offering shelter to the group for the night. She even promises to provide the much-needed antibiotics for Mackenzie. As the group follows Roxanne, Hiro starts to realize that the antibiotics are just the tip of the iceberg. The gang doesn't just control a few supplies. They own an entire shopping mall stocked with everything they could possibly need. Meanwhile, Sarah and Yoro continue their treacherous journey toward Boston, hoping to find the elusive geneticist, Allison Mann. But when they reach the city's entrance, they're met with a heavily guarded military checkpoint, complete with tear gas and armed soldiers. Sarah quickly formulates a plan. She'll create a diversion to keep the soldiers busy, while Yoro and Erson sneak around the blockade. As Sarah deals with the soldiers, Yoro slips through a side street and finds himself in a rebel-controlled headquarters. There, things get dicey, and he's captured by the rebels. Luckily, they mistake him for a trans man, and instead of exposing him, they let him go, even providing directions on where to find his people, get the hormones he needs, and remain hidden. Finally, after all their struggles, Yoro and Sarah track down Allison Mann's apartment, then her office at Harvard. The geneticist isn't thrilled by their unannounced visit, but once Yoro removes his mask, she immediately realizes why they're there. It's clear to Mann that she needs to study Yoro and his pet capuchin monkey, but there's a problem. The facilities at Harvard have been looted, and the necessary equipment and biological samples are nowhere to be found. She has one solution. They need to travel to San Francisco, where she has access to a lab. Sarah agrees to the dangerous journey, but with a twist. She secretly sabotages their radio, severing their only means of contacting the White House. She then uses the radio malfunction as an excuse to leave, instructing Yoro to stay behind and watch over the geneticist, while she goes off to find another way to communicate with the White House. While political infighting over power rages on, not everyone is fixated on it. One of Jennifer Brown's aides, Christine, falls ill and fears she has lost her baby. But an ultrasound reveals shocking news. The pregnancy is progressing, and it's likely she's carrying a boy. The news sends a ripple of uncertainty through the ranks, as the implications are far-reaching. Meanwhile, Sarah breaks into a stranger's house, only to be met with an unexpected surprise. The homeowner is as skilled and dangerous as the secret agent herself. A brutal fight ensues between the two women, but once they stop, catch their breath, and let each other speak, it turns out they're on the same side, working for the same organization, and they both came here for the same reason, to find the homeowner and put a bullet in her. Back at the White House, the news of the helicopter crash shakes Jennifer to her core, but Christine tries to calm her. The search team found only 2 pilots' bodies, which offers some relief, but that moment of peace doesn't last long. Jennifer realizes, with a sickening feeling, that Sarah most likely staged the crash to get rid of unnecessary witnesses. A terrifying thought grips her. Yorick is now with a dangerous criminal, and who knows what Sarah might do to him. To make matters worse, Regina Oliver, the primary challenger for the presidency, arrives at the White House. Kimberly, ever the schemer, seizes the opportunity and begins plotting a coup to oust Jennifer Brown and grab power for herself. Meanwhile, Allison Mann confesses to Yorick that she has serious doubts about the success of her research. She's unsure whether they'll have the resources to uncover why the men died or even if it's possible to bring the male species back. But one thing is clear, hard times are ahead for Yorick and his capuchin monkey. They are about to become experimental subjects. Sarah, who's been scheming in the shadows, returns to the office and falsely tells Yorick that she spoke to his mother and has received permission to go to San Francisco. The trio sets off, unaware that a military patrol is already scouring the city, hunting for Sarah and her accomplices. As the women wait for a safe window to pass through gas deployments, Yorick decides to visit the place the rebels told him about, a community of transgender people where he can remove his mask and reveal his true face without fear. Sarah explodes in a fit of rage over his latest reckless act. But soon, it's clear that the real threat isn't Yorick, it's Sarah herself. The patrol arrives at the community, showing everyone Sarah's photo. The trio narrowly escapes, hiding in a church where Sarah is forced to come clean. She admits she has no communication with the White House and has been making all the decisions on her own, with no backup or guidance. Hero, her friend, and Nora with her daughter continue to live in Roxanne's commune, where they believe they've stumbled upon a true paradise. Food, medicine, safety, it seems like the perfect place to survive. But paradise is never what it seems. When Nora tries to take her daughter away from one of Roxanne's radical feminist meetings, the situation takes a sharp turn. Roxanne erupts in fury, her face twisted with rage. She reminds them all too clearly, they are guests in her domain, and they will follow her rules. No questions asked. Obedience is mandatory, or there will be consequences. Roxanne does everything in her power to turn young Mackenzie against men, pushing her to join their radical movement. But just as another meeting begins, a shrill battle alarm cuts through the air. The women spring into action, quickly barricading the entrances and arming themselves to defend their precious supermarket. When the attackers arrive, they turn out to be a desperate group of women, clutching a little girl. Roxanne steps forward, but her heart has hardened. There's no room for outsiders, not even a child in need. Coldly, she drives them away, refusing to show any mercy. Meanwhile, Allison stumbles upon a flyer hidden among Sarah's belongings, a wanted poster for the agent. She warns Yorick that he needs to run, to escape before Sarah's past endangers them both. But Yorick, torn by loyalty, refuses to abandon his friend, even as he senses she's keeping dangerous secrets from them. That evening, Roxanne gathers the entire commune for a celebration, an event that quickly takes a bizarre turn. She begins by telling the crowd about Laura, a cherished member of their movement, proudly referring to them as the Amazons. What seems like a simple gathering soon morphs into something far darker. As the ceremony progresses, Hero and her companions begin to feel the unsettling atmosphere. First, Laura is sprinkled with dirt, then submerged in a bathtub. When she emerges, a transformed woman, everyone begins calling her by a new name, Athena. The ritual leaves the air thick with unease. Unable to ignore the weirdness any longer, Sam, Hero's trans friend, slips away from the hall. But someone follows him, not to comfort him, but to warn him of the dangers of clashing with Roxanne. The warning, however, backfires. She's swiftly summoned for a conversation, her fate uncertain. Back at the White House, Jennifer receives a troubling report. Sarah has been located, and an ambush is underway. The president's worry deepens as she realizes the search team could find her son as well. But by then, Allison has convinced Yorick to leave, and the pair disappears into the forest. As the trackers close in, the tension rises, but Sarah is a step ahead. She neutralizes the soldiers and destroys their radios, cutting off all communication to the White House. That night, Nora is jolted awake by screams. Trying to stay quiet, she peeks outside and sees a chilling sight: a crowd of Amazons brutally punishing a girl for speaking to Sam. The smiling beauties reveal their ruthless nature, but Nora, desperate to protect her daughter, decides not to interfere. She'll play by their rules if it means keeping Mackenzie safe. Sarah finds a van, and the group continues their journey to San Francisco, their hope dwindling with each passing mile. Yet despite Yoro and Allison's attempts to flee, Sarah's distrust of her companions grows, setting the stage for disaster. Exhausted and on edge, she falls asleep at the wheel. The van veers off the road, crashing violently. After struggling to climb out of the wreck, Allison scrambles to find Sarah, only to discover she's vanished from the driver's seat. Instead, a convoy of military vehicles appears on the horizon, vehicles that have nothing to do with the White House. Jennifer is quickly informed of the incident and the unsettling news. Among the fugitives was a man. As the weight of this revelation sinks in, she scrambles to deflect suspicion away from her son. Meanwhile, Yoro regains consciousness in a strange bed, disoriented, and finds himself in an unfamiliar house with an equally unfamiliar woman. He gets up, desperate to find Erson, but instead encounters the residents of the ranch, a group who seem peaceful but are evasive about the whereabouts of his companions. Meanwhile, Sarah and Allison awake in a prison cell, bewildered and unsure how to escape. Back in the city, Jennifer addresses the surviving citizens, urging them to remain calm and agree to evacuation without further chaos. Among the crowd, she spots a familiar face: Beth, her son's girlfriend, who's been in a hospital all this time. As Jennifer speaks with Beth, Kimberly continues to plot with Regina, pushing her to overthrow her mother and take control. Despite the seemingly friendly atmosphere of the ranch, Yoro isn't allowed to leave. Instead, he's thrown into a cell with the women, as the community debates what to do with their prisoners. In the midst of all this, more grim news arrives. A new strain of flu has emerged in Greece, complicating an already tense situation. Jennifer dives headfirst into managing the crisis, but her day takes another turn when Mara confronts her at the command center, demanding answers about the rumors surrounding Yoro. The tension in the cell is unbearable as the hours stretch on, each minute feeling like an eternity. Yoro and Sarah's simmering frustrations finally explode into an argument, but before it can escalate further, the heavy door creaks open. A woman from the settlement steps in, her face unreadable as she delivers the news. The decision has been made. They'll be allowed to stay in the settlement until Sarah recovers, but once she's better, they'll be escorted out of the city and can continue their journey to San Francisco. The relief is palpable, though their futures remain uncertain. The ranch residents, appearing kind and helpful, offer Sam a separate bedroom to rest in. As the exhaustion sets in and she prepares for sleep, Sam leans in, whispering a warning to Yoro: "Stay alert, trust no one." But Yoro, still clinging to the fleeting hope that they've found a safe haven, dismisses her fears, convinced that she's exaggerating. The ranch feels alive, vibrant with people going about their business, and everyone seems genuinely kind. The luxuries of food, water, and electricity are abundant, things most areas no longer have, and for a brief moment, Yoro allows himself to believe that maybe this place is different. But outside, the world continues to crumble. Mara's grief, the weight of her losses, becomes too much to bear. She climbs to the roof of the White House and, with one final, painful step, she leaps into the void, hoping to be reunited with her loved ones. Before she goes, she leaves a note for her daughter, filled with apologies and a final plea for strength. Meanwhile, Beth returns to the city, but instead of returning to her friends, as she'd promised Jennifer, she makes a beeline for a rebel truck. She joins a group planning a brutal assault on the White House, her loyalty torn, her allegiance shifting as the world around her crumbles. Back at Roxanne's commune, another act of violence shakes the fragile peace. Kate, one of the Amazons, attempts to leave the group, seeking a way out of the oppressive rules that have begun to suffocate her. Roxanne, merciless and unforgiving, shoots Kate in the back as she tries to flee. But rather than acknowledging the murder, Roxanne spins the tale, framing it as an attack by nomads to discourage further defections. The loss is not mourned. Instead, Roxanne orders the group into intensive firearms training, preparing for more conflict and making it clear that any guests will be thrown out of the commune soon. Nora, desperate to keep her daughter safe, hears about the impending expulsion and rushes to Roxanne, pleading for mercy. She begs to be allowed to stay a little longer to avoid the danger that looms. But Roxanne's heart remains cold and unyielding. The answer is no. Nora and her daughter have just a few more days before they, too, will be cast out. Roxanne stands tall as she addresses her followers, her voice filled with conviction and authority. She reminds them how far they've come, from the ground up, when she first discovered this place and built their community from nothing. She tells them that she, and only she, is the reason they've survived this long. Nothing and no one could replace the protection she provides. She preaches the dangers of the outside world, an unrelenting storm of chaos, death, and destruction, and reinforces the idea that only under her guidance can they find safety, power, and unity. The meetings continue, where the women are expected to recall the worst deeds of men, painful, graphic memories designed to cement the idea that men are the enemy. These gatherings are crucial for Roxanne's control, reinforcing her dominance and portraying her as the singular protector of all the women in the commune. The more the women internalize these teachings, the less room there is for doubt. In their eyes, Roxanne is not just their leader, she is their salvation. Meanwhile, Sam, frustrated by the manipulative power Roxanne holds over everyone, decides to leave. He begins preparing to carve out his own path, envisioning a new community away from Roxanne's influence. He hopes to take over the guest houses by the lake and start anew. However, Hero, once fiercely loyal to him, finds herself swayed by Roxanne's magnetic charisma. She begins to doubt the validity of Sam's warning, torn between her old friend and the promises of Roxanne's world, a world of safety, comfort, and belonging. The tension boils over during a heated argument between Hero and Sam. Roxanne, ever the opportunist, watches from the sidelines and sees an opportunity to deepen her hold on Hero. She steps in, making sure to manipulate Hero's emotions by reminding her that even Sam, who had once stood beside her, wasn't a real man. This further poisons Hero's perception of Sam, and in the end, the two friends part ways. Roxanne, now satisfied with the outcome, allows Sam to leave, but not without a few parting provisions. She lets him take a little food for his journey, though it's clear that her intent is to see him gone. The next morning, she doesn't tell Hero the truth, that she was the one who let Sam go. Instead, she comforts the girl, painting herself as the one who is truly looking out for her best interests. In a move to further solidify Hero's loyalty, Roxanne organizes a grand farewell celebration. This festival is meant to mark the end of all things male and reinforce the idea that they are all better off without men, without their influence. In a move to further solidify Hero's loyalty, Roxanne organizes a grand farewell celebration. This festival is meant to mark the end of all things male and reinforce the idea that they are all better off without men, without their influence. The celebration is lively and jubilant, with the women dancing and singing, celebrating their newfound freedom from men. But as the night wears on, Nora watches from the sidelines. She feels increasingly isolated from the group, unable to truly connect with them. The sense of being an outsider festers within her. But rather than quietly simmering, Nora plans her revenge. That night, while everyone sleeps, she sneaks into the shopping mall and sets it ablaze. The fire quickly consumes the building, and by morning, the Amazon commune's prize supplies are destroyed. The destruction leaves the Amazons reeling. They survive the fire, but their resources are gone, and their sense of security shattered. Roxanne, however, spins the situation, claiming that they will rebuild, that they will overcome this loss and emerge even stronger. She comforts the women with empty promises, rallying them with the idea that they are resilient, that they are united in their cause. Behind her mask of sorrow, Nora feels a twisted sense of satisfaction. She watches the grief-stricken women and relishes in the power she now holds over them. As Roxanne's control begins to slip, Nora realizes that this is her moment to gain leverage. She prepares to make her escape that night, heading into the forest to check her supplies. However, Her plans are interrupted when she stumbles upon something unexpected. A police car by the river, its interior filled with bodies. The sight is chilling, and it becomes clear to Nora that Roxanne is not the benevolent leader she's claimed to be. Her reign is built on deception and brutality, and now Nora has the upper hand. Determined to use this information to her advantage, Nora confronts Roxanne when they are alone. She reveals her discovery of the police car and the bodies, and in exchange for her silence, she demands access to the best food, protection, and shelter for herself and her daughter. But Nora doesn't stop there. She offers more. She promises to help Roxanne retain control over the community, ensuring that the women won't abandon her in the wake of the destruction. Roxanne, ever the manipulator, sees the value in Nora's offer and agrees to her terms. She gathers the Amazons and delivers a rousing speech, one filled with fiery rhetoric. She promises that despite their losses, they will endure, that they will conquer the world and rise above all challenges. The women cheer and rally behind her, their loyalty once again solidified in the face of hardship. As Sarah continues to recover, her training becomes a necessary routine, even though her mind often drifts into disorienting hallucinations and disturbing visions. Her sharp instincts, however, never falter, and she remains vigilant, especially when it comes to Yoro. She notices how he's beginning to trust the villagers too much, letting his guard slip. Sarah's suspicions grow when one of the villagers approaches her with questions about a device found in the wreckage of their vehicle. The villager is evasive, refusing to share the nature of the device, but it's clear to Sarah that the beacon must have been planted there by Roxanne's orders. The realization fills Sarah with a growing sense of unease. Something bigger is at play. Meanwhile, Hiro discovers another settlement, one that hides behind the guise of honoring the memory of men, all while pretending to protect women's rights. This community is led by a different group of women who have seemingly created a memorial to men, though their motives are suspicious. Roxanne, ever the opportunist, organizes a raid on this settlement, sending the Amazons to steal food and supplies. The scene quickly devolves into chaos as the Amazons destroy everything in their path. But Nora, observing the destruction, begins to question the morality of what she's witnessing. This is no longer about survival, it's about cruelty and dominance. She tries to reason with Roxanne, but the leader's deranged ideology makes it impossible for her to see reason. Roxanne insists that this is the path to power and strength, and Nora is left feeling increasingly repulsed by the group she once tried to belong to. Back in the heart of the political storm, Regina Oliver is preparing for a full-scale coup. With Jennifer Brown's power slipping, Regina orders her allies to be ready for action within the next 30 minutes. However, the rebellion is not as united as it seems. Kimberly, who had once been a strong ally, has lost her fire after her mother's death and is reluctant to continue with the rebellion. Despite this, Regina presses forward, counting on her supporters to overthrow the president. As tensions rise, Beth's team carries out a dangerous mission beneath the government building, planting explosives meant to cripple Jennifer's hold on power. The stage is set for a violent confrontation. When Jennifer is summoned to the command center, it's clear that she's about to face the fallout from the chaos she's been trying to manage. The rebels demand answers about Yoro's whereabouts, accusing Jennifer of hiding the truth to protect her pregnant aide, Christine. The president is forced to confess that her son is alive and that he was sent to a geneticist in an attempt to save humanity, though no one knows if he has reached his destination. As Jennifer's confession spreads, even those who had supported her begin to turn against her, swayed by Regina's claims. The demand for Jennifer's resignation grows louder as her credibility is shattered. But just as the situation reaches a boiling point, the building is rocked by an explosion, a clear sign that the rebels have breached the compound. They storm the command center, making their way through the underground tunnels, clashing with Jennifer's security. The president's forces are overwhelmed and forced to surrender, their weapons useless against the well-organized rebels. In the midst of the chaos, Jennifer catches sight of Beth, recognizing her despite the balaclava. Beth signals for her to remain silent, and Jennifer understands the unspoken message: stay quiet or risk blowing Beth's cover. The rebels' plan continues, but Regina, ever hungry for power, is not willing to relinquish her ambition without a fight. As the rebels move the hostages out of the control center, Regina makes her move, asserting that she is the rightful president and demanding immediate compliance from everyone. Her desperation escalates as she accuses her former allies of betrayal, exposing Kimberly's lack of loyalty, and, in her final act of rage, announces to the rebels and everyone else that Jennifer's son is alive. The revelation sends shockwaves through the room, but before Regina can say anything else, a rebel silences her permanently with a bullet to the head. Her life ends in an instant, but the damage has already been done. The news of Jennifer's son spreads like wildfire, shattering the fragile alliance between the rebels and throwing their plans into disarray. What was once a well-coordinated effort to overthrow Jennifer now faces a significant fracture, as conflicting interests and power struggles rise to the surface. In the wake of Regina's death, the rebel group finds itself in turmoil. The lines between loyalty and betrayal blur as the future of the rebellion hangs in the balance. Jennifer, though weakened, is forced to take control of the situation once again. The choices she makes in the coming days will determine not only her fate but the future of the country and the fractured alliances that remain. Yoro's prolonged stay at the settlement is proving to be a dangerous distraction, especially for the women in the community. Starved for any form of male attention in a world where men are increasingly scarce, the women begin to hunt him down, desperate to spend time with the last known surviving man. As they circle him like predators, Yoro is oblivious to the dangers lurking around him, too wrapped up in his newfound safety. Meanwhile, Allison, distracted by the local social scene, unknowingly leaves him vulnerable. Taking advantage of the momentary chaos, Sarah sneaks into the forest, her main mission now clear: to destroy the beacon that has been transmitting her location all this time. She knows that if the beacon is not destroyed, she and the group will never be safe from constant surveillance. As she works quickly to neutralize the device, the weight of the situation becomes even more apparent. This is not just about survival anymore. It's about staying one step ahead of everyone who would use them for their own purposes. Back at the White House, the rebel evacuation plan has failed spectacularly. A rival faction of rebels releases tear gas through the ventilation system, plunging the building into chaos. Gunfire erupts throughout the hallways, and the hostages scramble to escape as their captors and allies clash in a deadly firefight. Those who cannot escape in time are gunned down, their lives ending abruptly in the turmoil. In the chaos, Beth finds Jennifer and quietly removes her handcuffs, leading the president away from the wreckage. Jennifer is torn. She wants to save her pregnant aide, Christine, but there's no time. She has to leave her behind, but Christine is not abandoned. Kimberly, still loyal despite everything, steps forward to protect her. Together, they make their way through the underground parking lot, reaching an exit where they can make their escape. Meanwhile, back in Roxanne's commune, the search for surviving men intensifies. While searching the wreckage at Memory Town, Roxanne finds a notebook detailing the names of all the surviving men. This discovery sparks a new mission for her. She is determined to hunt down and eliminate the last remnants of the male population, believing that their existence is the source of all the world's problems. Roxanne's goal is now to free the planet by eradicating men. The first on her list is none other than Yoro. Nora, ever loyal to Roxanne, provides the portrait of Yoro, and the hunt begins. As the two women prepare to set out to find Yoro's village, Sarah senses the danger looming closer. She urges her companions to leave immediately, warning them that it may already be too late. Yoro, though reluctant to leave, doesn't argue with Sarah. But as they try to escape, the clock is ticking down. Roxanne has already located the village and is preparing her squad for an attack within hours. There's no time to waste. Amidst the chaos, a pair of nomads burst into Roxanne's camp, bringing shocking news to Hero. The president is dead, at least that's what the nomads believe. Hero is unaware that the title of president never truly belonged to her mother, but she assumes Jennifer is dead. She mourns her mother's loss, unaware that Jennifer is still very much alive and making plans to flee the city. Jennifer, devastated by the loss of so much, knows that staying in the city is no longer an option. With Beth by her side, she prepares to leave, understanding that her life, and the lives of those she cares about, are in immediate danger. That night, a tense and dramatic escape unfolds as Sam sneaks into Jennifer's house, prompting an immediate reaction from the woman, who recognizes her daughter's friend. Together, They try to flee the building, but it's too late. Outside, the house is already surrounded. Kristen and Kimberly, who are still trying to find safety, manage to find refuge in an abandoned barn. When morning arrives, Kimberly, realizing the stakes, tells Kristen that they have one chance to save everyone. Her solution is startling. They need Yoro, and Yoro appears willing to agree to the plan. Meanwhile, in the village, Yoro's brief moment of peace is shattered when one of the village women, who had long been infatuated with him, spends the night with him. This brief moment of comfort is immediately interrupted by the arrival of Roxanne and her Amazons, who storm the streets, demanding Yoro's surrender. The sound of gunfire wakes Sarah, and she orders Yoro's new girlfriend to get him to safety while she stays behind to hold off the Amazons. The situation quickly turns desperate. Realizing the village is heavily outnumbered, Sarah steps outside with her hands raised, pretending to be surrendering to the attackers. She uses this opportunity to deceive the Amazons, bringing out a local trans man and passing him off as Yoro, the supposed last man alive. The firefight erupts as the Amazons take the bait, but Sarah uses the chaos to disarm her enemies and escape. Even little Mackenzie, desperate to prove her worth, joins the fight, adding her voice to the fray, trying to show Roxanne that she belongs in the commune. But the situation becomes even more complicated when Hiro catches up with the escapees and fires at them, until Yoro turns around, recognizing his sister. Hiro hesitates, but Yoro's girlfriend, unaware of their relationship, shoots Hiro. Wounded but determined, Hiro delivers a final message to her brother, telling him about their mother's death and warning him that Roxanne and her Amazons plan to destroy him. She urges him to flee, sacrificing herself to buy Yoro the time he needs to escape. Hiro's words resonate with Yoro, but not before she takes down one of her fellow Amazons in a desperate act to protect her brother. Back in Roxanne's camp, the firefight rages on, and just when it seems like all hope is lost, Nora steps forward, raising her hands in surrender. Roxanne, furious, cannot control her rage, but she is met with a surprising calm from the remaining members of the commune. Hiro, who has managed to survive the firefight, shares the news that Yoro is alive. This revelation gives the women newfound strength, and Nora, determined to take control, returns to the camp with a single goal: to depose Roxanne. In a tense moment of confrontation, Nora challenges Roxanne's authority, but words alone fail to convince the Amazons to turn against their leader. Roxanne continues to provoke Nora until, in an act of sheer defiance, Nora shoots her in the chest. The Amazons, momentarily stunned, hesitate, but Nora's words quickly rally them. Hiro steps forward, now standing by Nora's side as the new leader of the group. In an instant, the power dynamic shifts, and the women of the commune have a new leader who promises change and a future free from Roxanne's oppressive rule. Elsewhere, Sarah walks for several kilometers and finally finds Yoro and Allison. Yoro is devastated, feeling like he has lost everything he loved, with no reason to go on. Sarah listens, and as she does, she shares her own painful past, revealing that she, too, lost her parents when she was young. She tells Yoro that if he wants to, he can walk away from it all. Since Jennifer is presumed dead, the agreement they had no longer holds. But Yoro refuses. He asks Sarah to become his trainer, vowing to learn how to protect himself and stop being a burden. With a renewed sense of purpose, Yoro commits to fighting for his future. As Jennifer, Beth, and Sam sit in the locked room, they remain unaware of the grim reality unfolding outside. The surveillance cameras track their every move, yet the trio is focused on trying to figure out how to escape. Though the room is devoid of anything useful, the constant presence of the cameras is a subtle reminder that they are not alone. The tension is palpable, each of them wondering who has captured them, and why. Meanwhile, Sarah is busy preparing the next leg of their journey. She leads her companions, Yoro and Allison, to a fueled vehicle. The car seems almost too well stocked for a simple escape, filled not just with gasoline but with scientific equipment and tools. A map is placed on the dashboard, and it's immediately clear that this journey is no random one. The route is marked, and the way forward is carefully planned, but its destination is a mystery.